We want to restore civic duty.
Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy recently proposed an interesting idea. What if we did away with the right to vote for the demographic that tends to vote for Democrats? He's proposing to basically ban people from being able to vote until they're 25 years old. However, there are some exceptions as long as you are able to live by some pretty strict requirements. And he's about to explain it in this video. Let's watch.
We want to restore civic duty to in the mindset of the next generation of Americans. And how we want to do it is to say that if you want to vote as an 18-year-old between the ages of 18 and 25, you need to either do your civic duty through service to the country. That's 6 months of service in either military service or in a first responder, including police, fire, or otherwise. Or else you have to pass the same civics test that an immigrant has to pass in order to become a naturalized citizen who can vote in this country. At age 25, that falls away. So in a nutshell, what we're proposing is a constitutional amendment to raise the voting age to 25.
Raise the voting age to 25 unless you served in the military or have the ability to pass the same civics test that immigrants have to pass in order to become citizens of the United States. Very curious what you all think about it. I'm gonna go to you first, Cenk.
Yeah, so there's three different parts to this. There's only one part that matters, that's the raising the age to 25. But I'll dispense with others as well. Civics test is totally unconstitutional. It's back to the Jim Crow days when they would do these absurd tests. They would do selective enforcement. And are you sure if you're a right winger you want a civics test? Okay, I actually am a legal documented immigrant. I actually passed that test with flying colors, I might add. And I can tell you right now, a lot of Fox News viewers are not gonna pass that test, okay? Now, why do they wanna move the voting age to 25? Because they lost the young, and they know it. And Vivek knows it. He's totally full of crap. He's like, oh yeah, I care about civics and all that stuff. Like Donald Trump was your leader. Donald Trump doesn't know one thing about civics. He doesn't know how the government works at all. I could just look at him and with my laser eyes, I declassify. He wouldn't pass the test. He wouldn't even be able to vote for himself, right? So no, they know they've lost the young 100% and they're in a full scale panic. And this is a direct attack on democracy to try to regain power because they don't give a damn about democracy. And young people, you should be super excited. You know why? Because they're scared of you.
So I wanna just quickly go to Fox News's take on this because believe it or not, there happens to be a take that's too extreme for even Fox News. I'm really curious what their argument is here, so let's take a quick look.
I don't support this, and I think that it's because we expect a lot out of our young adults. We say that they can join the military as young as 18, right? And so I guess he's trying to make up for that in one way. I think there's a much easier solution, which is to fix the American education system and really bolster the teaching of civics and history in the United States.
I've met a lot of adults, a lot of older people that are really stupid. So I don't like this idea of having younger people have to pass what do you know or not know? If we're gonna do that, then do it across the board. I also just don't trust the government not to abuse this down the road and decide to put more requirements on people to vote or more things to pick and choose.
As an American citizen, everything that happens around you impacts you. I believe the answer is not conditional voting, it's increasing the vote.
Sharon, what are your thoughts?
What she said and what he said, but hey, we could play a fun game and let's go along with this thing and make it across the board, okay? And retroactive too. Then we wouldn't have a President Trump, okay? Never served in the military. The whole thing is so silly season. And yes, they're afraid of young people who in a lot of ways are more creative and smarter than everybody else. But why not go for it? Make it across the board and make everybody pass this really hard test. And let's see who gets to vote. Let's make you pass the test no matter how old you are before you walk into that booth, and then we'll see what we get. What we won't get is this blowhard who's on CNN for an hour pretending that he's full of democracy, okay? That's what we won't get. I think I could pass the test. I would have to study, but I think I could pass the test.
Like I said, I took the test. Trust me, you all could pass it. Trump, on the other hand, he thinks the vice president can decide an election all on his own. ain't not gonna pass the test. Okay, that is definitely
bleach.
Yeah, that is definitely incorrect. All right. So
yeah.
But I want to say one more thing there. That Fox News panel, they didn't get the memo. I guarantee you, their anchors start turning around and at some point going, I mean, look, I mean, the young people. There was like a couple of 2 to 3 people there that were young-ish, and so they're like, wait, are we going to get banned from voting? Okay, yeah, that's the direction they're going. I have all these quotes in my book that's coming out, Justice is Coming, where Donald Trump, Lindsey Graham, so many others go, we can't have this much voting. It's too much voting, we can't have it. The Republicans will never win if we have this much voting. So they know.
They also know that young voters really hurt them during the last general election, presidential election. So I want to get to those numbers. We've talked about this before in different contexts, but it's important to remember what's motivating this. So over half of all voters under the age of 30 voted in the 2020 elections, which is a record figure. It's sad that that's a record, but it is. And the demographic powered President-elect Joe Biden's victory over President Donald Trump, according to data from the Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement at Tufts University. So if it weren't for young voters, especially in some of those key battleground states, Trump could have still been president of the United States. And a lot of times when you watch conservative media, right-wing media, they love to say the quiet parts out loud. They love to say things like, we keep losing these elections because of these young women who haven't gotten married yet. There are examples of, one of the top GOP lawyers recently, last month, in fact, during the RNC retreat, decided to float the idea that voting should be limited on college campuses. Gee, I wonder why. And rather than tailor their message and their policies during their campaigning to actually appeal to young voters, again, it goes back to what we've been saying. They would rather change the rules and make sure to do so in a way that favors them through the electoral process. It's pretty gross.
Yeah, and as we shared with you guys many times, that's why you're the more, well, both older crew, but the crew that's gotten the memo in Fox News, like Jesse Waters, have done several segments where they're saying like, well, I mean, these young people, they're voting too much. We've got a problem here. We've got to stop it. And by the way, that's part of the reason why they're trying to do so much propaganda in the schools. That's why they're trying to make sure that you don't learn about racism or LGBTQ folks, etc., because they're in a cold sweat panic. And my favorite quote was from Scott Walker, former governor of Wisconsin, where he said that they lost the Supreme Court race, which was going to decide abortion in Wisconsin. And he said, we had so many young voters that it was impossible for the Republicans to win. Guys, I love that they're scared of the younger voters. I love how they're so worried that America is now progressive and the young are overwhelmingly progressive. Let's go get them. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.